My success as a team is more successful than LeBron. I got 6 rings.
Okay, so then if I talk to an NBA owner, by the way, this is very helpful because realize this is very helpful because for me as a fan, I've followed this. So if I speak from an NBA standpoint, owner, and I want to find an all-around player to be my number one, you think the average owner is going to pick you?
Scottie Pippen finally said what nobody else in the NBA had the nerve to say out loud. And he said it straight to LeBron James's face, not through a tweet, not on a podcast, not behind some private dinner curtain. This is not recycled sports drama cooked up for clicks. This is not some loud hot take from a TV analyst chasing attention. The details are coming from people who were actually in the room or close enough to hear every single word clearly, word for word. And here's what really makes this heavy. LeBron James, a man who has never struggled to speak his mind, has said absolutely nothing in response. Nothing. So before the media smooths this out and turns it into something safe and polished, let's break down what really happened. Because once you hear the full context, the history behind it, the tension that's been building for years, and the exact tone of what was said, you'll understand why the basketball world is quietly shaken right now. This runs way deeper than it looks.
Whole resume, his competitiveness, his drive, his will to win, what he's want to do. When someone like LeBron has to spread that out for 20 plus years, it's not the same drive. It's not the same fight. It's not the same hunger.
So let me pause it right there. We're going to continue in a little bit. Scottie right here is saying something interesting. And we're going to keep playing it. Scottie is saying,
to really get why 2025 turned into the year of this confrontation between Scottie Pippen and LeBron James, you have to rewind. This didn't just explode out of nowhere. It's been building slowly in the background of every GOAT debate, every legacy ranking, every flashy graphic comparing eras side by side. There's always been this silent friction between the legends of the 90s and the way LeBron has carried himself through his career. For a long time, the older generation kept it respectful and low-key. Guys like Pippen, players who sacrificed their bodies for championships in a time without player empowerment, without social media branding machines, without the kind of control today's stars move with so easily. They watched. They stayed patient. They chose their words carefully in interviews. But there's only so long you can stay calm when it starts to feel like your entire era is being edited out of the story. Now look at it from Pippen's side. His legacy has never been simple. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the 75 greatest players ever, a 6-time champion who was absolutely crucial to every single one of those titles. Yet every conversation about him somehow circles back to Michael Jordan, or to how underappreciated he was, or to his contract drama, or to whether he was a sidekick instead of a superstar. That kind of narrative weighs on a person. For years, Pippen has had to hear his name attached to debates that rarely center him fully. Then on top of that, you've got the nonstop LeBron talk, the GOAT campaigns, the he already passed Jordan takes, the highlight packages framing history like it's a straight line that ends with LeBron on top. And lately, the way LeBron has responded when asked about NBA history and the legends before him hasn't exactly calmed things down. Because here's the real twist. It's not always about what LeBron says. Sometimes it's what he doesn't say. Sometimes it's the tone, the subtle shrug, the way he places himself at the center of every historical conversation, as if everything before him was just the warm-up act. To some fans, that's confidence. To some players, that's earned pride. But to someone like Scottie Pippen, who watched the 90s grind through physical battles and relentless playoff wars, it started to feel like something else. It started to feel like quiet disrespect. And here's where this gets even more serious. Pippen wasn't alone in noticing it. According to people close to the situation, and this hasn't fully hit mainstream headlines yet, multiple legends from the 90s had private conversations in early 2025 about LeBron's approach to history. These weren't secret meetings with some master plan, no group chat plotting, just organic frustration, real talks between former stars who gave everything to the game and felt like their chapter was being reduced to a footnote in a story that keeps getting rewritten. And let's be clear, this was never about LeBron's talent. Nobody would sense questions what he's done on the court. The numbers are real, the longevity is unreal, the championships are documented. The issue was legacy culture. It was about how his era sometimes frames his achievements as the measuring stick for everything that came before. Like the past only exists to validate the present, instead of recognizing that today's greatness stands on decades of sacrifice, sweat, and innovation from the players who built the foundation. For the 90s legends, that foundation wasn't theoretical. It was physical. It was brutal playoff series. It was less freedom of movement. It was contracts that locked players in without much leverage. It was earning respect the hard way. So when the conversation keeps drifting toward greatest ever in a way that feels dismissive of that grind, emotions build, quietly at first, then steadily.
Would you put yourself ahead of LeBron as a team standpoint?
My success as a team is more successful than LeBron. I got 6 rings.
Okay, so then if I talk to an NBA owner, by the way, this is very helpful because this is very helpful because for me as a fan, I've followed this. So if I speak from an NBA standpoint, owner, and I want to find an all-around player to be my number one.
By early 2025, those emotions weren't whispers anymore. They were real discussions happening behind closed doors. Not about attacking LeBron, but about feeling overlooked. About feeling like history was being reshaped without proper balance. And Scottie Pippen had more personal reasons than most to finally speak up. He has lived through being essential, but not always centered. Celebrated, but also overshadowed. Praised, yet questioned. So when he looked at how legacy talk was unfolding again and how certain tones were landing, something in him clearly snapped into action. This wasn't random. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't clout chasing. It was years of tension meeting one moment of honesty. And when that moment came, he didn't send it through social media. He didn't hint at it through someone else. He said it directly. And the silence that followed from LeBron, that's what has everybody watching closely right now. Now let's get very specific because the details matter here. You need to understand what actually pushed Scottie Pippen to his limit in 2025. Earlier that year, LeBron made a string of comments in interviews and on social media. The kind of casual, off-the-cuff remarks that seem harmless at first, but hit different when you're the one hearing them from the outside. He talked about what it really takes to win. He talked about toughness. He talked about surviving different eras, different opponents, different pressure levels. On the surface, it sounded like confidence. It sounded like pride and longevity. But depending on how you heard it, those words didn't just celebrate his journey. They quietly shrunk the grind of the generations before him. One moment in particular kept coming up in conversations around the league. People close to the situation pointed to an interview where LeBron spoke about dominating across decades, adjusting to rule changes, carrying teams through chaos. Again, nothing wild on its own, but to someone like Pippen, listening carefully, it felt like more than self-praise. To him, it sounded like a message between the lines. It sounded like, because I lasted longer, I worked harder. Because my career stretched further, my climb was steeper. And that is exactly where Pippen drew the line. The 90s were not soft. They were not easy. The physical play was different. The hand-checking was real. The rules allowed more contact. The margin for error in the playoffs was razor thin. You didn't just form super teams whenever you felt like it. You didn't have a full media machine polishing your image across dozens of platforms every single day. You showed up, you got hit, you hit back, and if you survived 4 brutal playoff rounds, you lifted that trophy. Pippen did that 6 times, 6. So when he hears a modern star, even one as accomplished as LeBron, speak about NBA history in a way that feels like it flattens those battles into a simple comparison chart, something shifts inside. Something that had been quiet for years suddenly has nowhere left to sit. And here's something most people don't fully grasp about Scottie Pippen in 2025. He is not the same version of himself from the Last Dance era. Back then, he was navigating public fallout with Jordan, contract drama, old wounds being reopened on a global stage. That documentary forced him to confront his own legacy in real time. He came out of that sharper, more direct, less interested in playing it safe. Staying silent no longer felt noble to him. It felt unnecessary. So when LeBron's comments kept stacking up and the culture around the GOAT debate kept pushing one narrative higher while compressing the rest, Pippen didn't subtweet. He didn't hint. He didn't leak frustration through a reporter. He went straight to the source. And this next part is what hasn't fully hit the public yet. What happened took place at a private NBA event in early 2025. No cameras, no live streams, just current players, executives, and legends from different eras gathered in the same space. The kind of event where phones stay in pockets and real conversations happen face to face. Pippen was there. LeBron was there. At some point that night, they ended up in the same room. Maybe it was planned. Maybe it was spontaneous. Nobody can confirm that part. But what multiple people agree on is this. Pippen made a decision in that moment. He wasn't going to hold it in anymore. According to those who spoke carefully about it afterward, without putting their names on blast, the atmosphere shifted fast. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was tense. The kind of tension that doesn't need raised voices to feel heavy. 2 icons. 2 eras. No cameras to hide behind. By every account available, Pippen walked up directly. No crowd gathered, no dramatic entrance, just one Hall of Famer choosing honesty over diplomacy. And what he said, in essence, according to several connected to that evening, was clear. He told LeBron that with greatness comes responsibility. He told him that the GOAT narrative surrounding him had grown so dominant that it was swallowing entire generations, that legends who built the league's foundation were being reduced to comparison stats on graphics. That history was being reshaped in real time, and that someone in LeBron's position had the power to balance that, but wasn't doing enough to protect it. It wasn't an attack on his talent. It wasn't a denial of his accomplishments. It was about stewardship, about respect, about understanding that being the face of an era means honoring the eras that made yours possible. That's what made the moment heavy, because this wasn't social media noise. This wasn't debate show drama. This was one legend looking another in the eye and saying, "You carry more than your own story." And once those words were spoken in that quiet room, there was no pretending the tension didn't exist anymore. He brought up names, real names, players from the 90s who laid the pavement that LeBron drives on every single night. He talked about what that era demanded, not just physically, but mentally. The hard fouls, the short benches, the pressure that didn't come with brand teams and digital shields. He talked about what it cost people to compete at that level, and then he made it personal. According to the accounts from that room, Pippen looked LeBron in the eye and told him straight up that with the platform he has, with the reach he has the power to lift NBA history higher instead of placing himself at the center of it. He said that whether intentional or not, the way the narrative has been shaped lately does the opposite. He told him the legends are watching. He told him the old guard has been patient, but patience runs out. Now here's the part everybody wants to know. How did LeBron respond? The details vary slightly depending on who tells it, but the main thread stays the same. LeBron stayed calm. He listened more than he spoke. No yelling, no dramatic reaction. He didn't brush Pippen off, but he also didn't fold. He reportedly said something close to this, that he respects every player who came before him, that he has never tried to shrink anyone's legacy, and that his responsibility is to be the best version of himself, not to manage how others feel about their standing in history. Depending on your perspective, that's either a fair and composed answer from a man who has earned every milestone, or it's exactly the mindset Pippen was calling out. Think about that. LeBron's stance, boiled down, was simple. I respect the past, but my greatness is not responsible for how you feel about your place in it. That's powerful. It's confident. But it also draws a clear line, and if the accounts are accurate, Pippen didn't argue further. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't storm off. He walked away without resolution, not angry, not satisfied, just finished, like a man who said what he needed to say and understood that some conversations don't end with agreement. They just end with truth being spoken. Now look at what happened in the weeks after that private exchange in early 2025. LeBron went quiet on legacy talk. That's not his usual pattern. This is someone who normally engages. He responds, he posts, he addresses narratives head on. But when it came to debates about history, past legends, and where he stands among them, there was sudden silence. Maybe that's coincidence. Maybe it's timing. But the people who know about that conversation don't think it's random. In NBA circles, word spreads fast even when cameras aren't around. And even without public confirmation, the energy shifted. You could feel it if you were paying attention. A slight tension in interviews, a subtle edge in how former players spoke. Some retired stars who had stayed neutral started choosing their words more carefully. Not attacks, not open criticism, just pointed reminders. One legend, who played through the 90s and into the early 2000s, said in a 2025 interview, completely unprompted, "The greatest players in this league's history understood that greatness doesn't need to erase anything. It builds on top." He didn't say LeBron's name. He didn't have to. As the story moved quietly through basketball circles, fan reactions split, almost exactly how you'd expect. LeBron supporters argued that he's earned his position, that rings matter, that longevity matters, that dominating across different generations of competition is something we've never seen before at this level. And none of that is wrong. But Pippen's supporters, and there are more of them than most people realize, framed it differently. They said, this isn't about denying LeBron's greatness. It's about responsibility. It's about whether truly great players carry history forward or simply carry themselves forward. That distinction is the heart of this whole situation. Now zoom out for a second. Beyond the private conversation, beyond the silence, beyond the tension between two icons, there's a bigger question sitting in the middle of all this. What does it actually mean to be the greatest of all time in a sport built on layers of history? LeBron James is undeniably one of the 2 or 3 greatest players to ever touch a basketball. That's not serious debate territory. His skill set, his durability, his adaptability across eras, those are rare at the highest level. But Scottie Pippen's challenge was never about skill. It was about stewardship. It was about whether being the face of an era means protecting the eras that made yours possible. And that's a question that doesn't get answered with stats. It gets answered with perspective. It was never just about stats. It was about character, about how you wear greatness when the lights are on you every single day. There's a whole generation of NBA legends who played before social media timelines, before brand managers, before the full machine of modern sports entertainment took over. They built this league brick by brick. These are men who absorbed hits that would get flagged instantly today. Men who suited up through injuries that would sideline players for a season now. Men who didn't have teams crafting their image 24/7 or negotiating how history would remember them. They just played, they competed, they endured. And those men deserve their stories told honestly, not as background scenery, not as comparison charts, not as stepping stones for someone else's highlight reel. Their era is not a prop. It is a chapter all on its own. What Pippen was really saying in that private room wasn't just aimed at LeBron. It was bigger than that. It was about protecting a generation. It was about refusing to let the architects of the modern NBA fade into footnotes while the present writes itself as the main event. That's why the moment carried weight. That's why it landed the way it did. Even now, with no official statement, no press conference, no viral clip, people in basketball circles are talking about it in low, serious tones because Pippen said something real and LeBron heard it. Whatever happens next, whether there's a public response or it stays locked in that room forever, the fact that it happened matters. One of the defining players of the 90s looked at the face of modern basketball and said, "We deserve better than this." That's not small, that's not petty, that's powerful. So here we are in 2025. Scottie Pippen did something very few people at that level are willing to do. He went directly to LeBron. Not to tear him down, not to question his greatness, but to challenge him to think bigger than personal legacy, to consider what it means to carry the game's history, not just his own resume. Now the real question is what LeBron does with that. Does he take it to heart? Does he adjust how he frames the conversation around history? Or does he stay firm in the belief that his only job is to maximize his own greatness? None of that is clear yet, but the conversation happened. The words were spoken, and moments like that don't just disappear. So let me ask you straight up, was Scottie Pippen right to confront LeBron James? Or does LeBron owe nothing to any generation except his own? Drop your take in the comments right now. I want to see where this community stands because this debate is not simple. It cuts deep, and I have a feeling it's going to split people right down the middle. And if this is your first time here, tap subscribe right now. This channel digs into the conversations that major sports outlets tiptoe around. The private moments, the real tension, the stories that actually shift the culture of basketball. Now here's where this situation really starts to stretch beyond just two names and one private conversation. Because when legends challenge the face of the league, it forces everybody to look in the mirror. This isn't just about Pippen and LeBron anymore. It's about how the NBA handles its own history moving forward. The league has always sold nostalgia, old highlights, classic finals, throwback jerseys. But honoring history is different from marketing it. One is respect, the other is business, and players from the older eras can feel the difference. There's a quiet concern among some former stars that the modern game celebrates the present so loudly that the past slowly fades into background noise. Not erased, not ignored, just softened. Simplified, reduced to short clips and quick stats that don't tell the full story of how hard it really was. That's what makes Pippen's confrontation bigger than a headline. Because if someone like him doesn't speak up, who will? He's got the rings, he's got the resume, he's got nothing left to prove. So when he chooses to risk tension with a current superstar, that's not random energy, that's conviction. And here's the twist. There are current players watching all of this closely. Younger stars who grew up idolizing LeBron, but who also studied the tape of Jordan, Magic, Bird, Kobe, Duncan. They understand that today's comfort comes from yesterday's grind. They see both sides. That's why this moment could quietly shape the culture of the league for years. If LeBron leans into history more publicly, gives louder credit, makes space in his messaging for deeper acknowledgement of past eras, that shifts the tone. Not because he has to, but because when the biggest voice adjusts, the echo follows. And if he doesn't, then the divide between generations might grow sharper. Not hostile, not dramatic, just colder, more distant. The kind of distance that shows up in interviews, in Hall of Fame speeches, in subtle comments that fans catch months later. Legacy in sports isn't just numbers, it's relationships. It's how peers talk about you when you're not in the room. It's how the generation before you nods when your name comes up. Right now, LeBron's legacy is secure on the court. That part is locked. But legacy off the court, the way history wraps around your name, that's shaped in moments like this. And Pippen knew that. He wasn't trying to rewrite LeBron's achievements. He was trying to protect the emotional equity of his own era. The bruises, the rivalries, the nights when every possession felt like survival. That doesn't show up clean on a stat sheet, but it matters. There's also another layer nobody's talking about loudly. The NBA is heading into a new transition phase. LeBron's career is closer to the end than the beginning. When he retires, the conversation will explode all over again. Greatest ever, Mount Rushmore, era comparisons. It's going to be nonstop. The way he frames history now could influence how that final chapter feels. If bridges are built, the retirement tributes will feel unified. If tension lingers, you'll notice who speaks with warmth and who keeps it formal. Those small details tell real stories. That's why this private exchange carries so much weight. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's symbolic. One era tapping the shoulder of another and saying, remember where this started. And the truth is, both sides have valid ground to stand on. LeBron has earned every bit of praise he receives. His dominance across decades is rare air. At the same time, the foundation he stands on was poured by men who didn't have the spotlight he has now. Both truths can exist at once. The question is whether the league culture makes room for both loudly. Because greatness doesn't shrink when it shares space, it actually grows. When past and present connect, the story becomes richer, stronger, more layered. That's the crossroads the NBA is standing at in 2025. Not a scandal, not a feud, a test of perspectives. And whether people admit it or not, that quiet conversation between Scottie Pippen and LeBron James might end up being one of the most important cultural moments this league has seen in a long time. At the end of the day, this was never about disrespect in a loud, messy way. It was about pride. It was about legacy. It was about how the story of basketball gets told when the cameras are off and the microphones are silent. Scottie Pippen didn't step up to LeBron James because he doubted his greatness. That part is settled. What he questioned was something deeper. He questioned how greatness carries itself, how it honors what came before it, how it protects the ground it stands on. That's a different kind of conversation, a harder one. And the fact that it happened behind closed doors makes it even more powerful. No viral clip, no dramatic headlines in the moment. Just two icons standing face to face, talking about history, responsibility, and respect. That's rare in today's sports world. LeBron's response, calm and steady, showed that he understood the weight of the moment. He didn't react emotionally. He didn't escalate. He stood firm in his belief that his role is to maximize his own path. And depending on how you see it, that's either leadership or distance. But here's the reality. Both men represent something bigger than themselves. Pippen represents a generation that fought through a tougher, more physical version of the game without the branding power players have today. LeBron represents a modern era where athletes are global icons, business leaders, and voices far beyond the court. These two worlds were always going to collide at some point. What makes this moment special is that it wasn't about tearing someone down. It was about demanding balance. It was about saying that honoring the past doesn't weaken the present, it strengthens it. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. Greatness is not just about numbers. It's not just about rings. It's not just about longevity. It's also about how the generation before you feels when your name is mentioned. It's about whether history feels respected or replaced. In 2025, that conversation is no longer theoretical. It happened. It was spoken out loud. And even if the public never gets a full transcript, the ripple effect is already there. The NBA is built on layers. Magic didn't erase Russell. Jordan didn't erase Magic. Kobe didn't erase Jordan. Every era adds to the tower. The question is whether that tower is being stacked or reshaped. Scottie Pippen drew a line in the sand. LeBron James held his ground. And the basketball world is watching what comes next. Now I want to hear from you. Was Pippen right to confront him face to face? Or is LeBron completely justified in focusing only on his own journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is deeper than highlights and trophies. If you respect real basketball conversations, make sure you hit that like button so more fans can find this discussion. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we break down the moments that don't always make it to the front page, but still shape the culture of the game. Share this video with someone who loves talking hoops history. Send it to that friend who never backs down from a GOAT debate. Let's get the conversation moving. And with that said, I'll see you on the next one.